that fantasy night edition. The technical difficulty. Every you know me, no Junior here at service and waiting. Hopefully we get Steezy A up here. Hopefully I don't let out some of my assignment make it here today. We are at phone fan trivia where I'm Steezy needed a break from taking L's from me in fantasy trivia. So it's perfectly fine there. I'm perfectly fine postponing that another week. I need some time off. And man, and so now we're looking here. We have some injury news here. Uh-oh. Sounds like we having some technical difficulties, are we? But we have some injury news here. Talking about the Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is going to be out for the rest of the season. He is getting that season-ending shoulder surgery. Really, really brutal here for not just fantasy owners, but the Colts organization for Anthony Richardson. This was an opportunity for them to evaluate. This was somebody they wanted to grow. They wanted to grow Anthony Richardson into this position. They wanted him to have that time with Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles, and that you see that offense that Jalen Hurts was able to run, and you can only get that with more time in playing in the offense. And unfortunately for Anthony Richardson, things are just going to have to end now for him. And so now it's Gardner Minshew. So we're moving forward with fantasy players and Gardner Minshew. And give Gardner some time because Gardner, one, he's seen this offense before backing up Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, so he knows the offense. He's worked with Shane Steichen before. Give them some time. Shane Steichen is kind of starting to reinvent himself as invent himself as a really, really good offensive mind. And I think that this Colts offense will be okay. Is it going to be to the heights of where Anthony Richardson had them at? No, but Gardner Minshew has gotten them a win in Baltimore this season. And so I think that Gardner's going to be able to play pretty decently. I think he's, probably look for him if you're streaming quarterbacks. I stream quarterbacks in one of my leagues. So I have Gardner in a league, not playing him this week, not playing him this week, but I think better weeks are ahead for Gardner Minshew for sure. So very, very brutal there. In Dynasty, if you have Anthony Richardson, I think you're fine. Just go ahead, let him get healthy, come back for the season. And season long, you got to start looking for the future. And if you need to make a trade, you need to start looking at where and what quarterbacks can I make a trade for that somebody will be willing, like who's struggling right now. I think that, the Joe Burrow window is out. Like, I think you missed that window at this point. You had a window where Joe Burrow was sucking and Joe Burrow wasn't good. And now he's had, back-to-back wins, pretty solid fantasy days here for Joe Burrow. So, you might miss the window on Joe Burrow, or you may find somebody that says that Joe Burrow is a sell high, and you take the opportunity to go ahead and sell high on Joe Burrow and buy Joe Burrow. Like, you don't have a quarterback at this point if you have Anthony Richardson. Hopefully you had a backup and you weren't, hitching your horse all the way to Anthony Richardson. But if not, if you're in one of these deeper leagues, you're going to start having to look around, look for a Derek Carr, look for people like that. Maybe you have to do the unfathomable and start Russell Wilson in fantasy. Like, you have to do what you can at this point because Anthony Richardson, some people took him in a pretty mid to late round pick. And if you're in a larger league where quarterbacks are a scarcity, or you're in a 2-quarterback league, you're really, really going to need that replacement. So sometimes it can be Gardner Minshew. I think Gardner is more of a spot start type of person, but I think that he will have some boost for you in fantasy. Make sure you get that Fantasy Sports Optimizer right there at the corner of the screen. Make sure you take that QR code, you get you a 7-day free trial with the Fantasy Sports Optimizer. Optimizer isn't throwing out Gardner Minshew this week, and it's probably because he's playing that nasty Cleveland Browns defense that went and got a dub against the San Francisco 49ers last week. Got a question pop up in the chat from my man Brad McCoy. Go ahead and make sure he's on Twitch. So shout out to you for following us on Twitch. If Aaron Jones plays, do I start him? I feel they might ease him in. No. Do you, well, not no, but no to that question. Well, not to the question, but no to the thought of this is not a question. You start Aaron Jones. If Aaron Jones is playing, you start him. And it's not really a easing him in because they don't have another option. Yes, before the bye, did AJ Dillon run the ball pretty effectively? Yes, but we're not going to forget that AJ Dillon has not been running the ball effectively for the majority of the year that's up to this point. And so Aaron Jones is just that good of a player. It feels like anything that they pulled him out of was just more precautionary at this point. They didn't want the injury getting worse. They wanted him to take another week break. So I think that now at this point, it is better for them to just go ahead and roll him out there because they got to start winning football games again. And they have a really tough road game here coming up this week against the Denver Broncos. But you look at this Denver Broncos defense, and they are the worst against the run this season. And so that is a matchup that you want for Aaron Jones. If there was ever a get right game where you bring Aaron Jones back, he looks healthy, you get him to go ahead and get some really good touches and start getting his legs under him. You play him against this Denver Broncos defense who, one, really, really bad against the run, and two, have a quarterback that's going to make sure that you have plenty of chances on offense in Russell Wilson. So 100%, I would start Aaron Jones this week. I think that I think he's a pretty sneaky DFS ad, actually, and just playing him on your DFS roster because you'll probably get some lower ownership. And I'm trying to look here and see what Aaron Jones' ownership percentage is for this week because I think that you can get him at a pretty sneaky low ownership because everybody is concerned about the injury. They don't know if they should start him or not, and they kind of overlook his name, but he has the best matchup of any running back on the slate. And so Aaron Jones, 5% ownership here. 5% ownership for a starting running back who is really, really good. And he's going up against the worst defense and to opposing running backs in terms of rushing yards per game. Yeah, I think that you can do pretty well. I think Aaron Jones will have a pretty solid game. Maybe not get a bunch of touches, but his touches are going to be very effective. And you can't take away his what's the word I'm looking for? You can't take away his impact in the passing game. Remember that last game, full game that he played with the Chicago Bears, he was 2 for 86. So you can't take away his receiving impact, and you definitely can't take away his rushing impact against this Denver Broncos defense. All right. Appreciate that question, Brad. Very good question there. Make sure you again tap into that QR code for the Fantasy Sports Optimizer 7-day free trial. Daryl, our leader, Daryl, he's won plenty of these Millie Maker contests in the short slate and the large slate. He's been able to place and he's won a lot of money using that Fantasy Sports Optimizer. Make sure you tap in there as well. I'm going to go ahead and while we let some more questions generate, I'm gonna give you a deep peek behind the lens, and let's tap into the betting piece of the Washington Commanders playing my New York Giants. And as anybody that's over the course of the season, you know that I have no faith in the New York Giants at all this season from what their output has been. Not fact. We cannot forget the did have a tie. Oh, are we good? And we did have we did have a tie in the game, and so 5 against the spread, playing against Washington at home here. This is a little bit healthier as they're getting potentially Andrew Thomas back in this lineup. They're getting John Michael Schmitz back in this lineup, and uh, oh man, I'm still having some issues. Hopefully, we can get everything figured out here. I really want to apologize to everybody that's maybe tapping into this episode and seeing some of the technical difficulties we're having here. But the show goes on, and I'm giving out these winning picks, and I'm telling you right now, everybody is running to bet the Washington Commanders here in this spot on the road, laying 2. But I think this is a sneaky spot to play the Washington Commanders here. I mean, not the Washington Commanders, but the New York Giants here because nobody is betting the New York Giants. 70% of the money on the Washington Commanders in this spot. especially after they just went on the road, gave Desmond Ritter his first loss. Desmond Ritter hasn't lost a home game since high school. And this is his first home loss. And now everybody's riding the Commanders train. Not so fast. Sam Howell has not had back-to-back games without an interception. He is kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, along with this entire Washington Commanders team, where they're kind of up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down over the course of the season. And so this is just a down week for this Commanders team. And I think you need to pay attention to that in terms of fantasy of, hey, maybe this is not the week to start Sam Howell. This New York Giants defense has 5 turnovers in the past 3 games. They have allowed less than 300 yards of total offense in 2 of the last 3. They have started to click. They have become healthier. Wink Martindale knows this Redskins team, Commanders team. Whoa, so sorry for that. He knows this Commanders team, and he knows that this Commanders team and Sam Howell is a little bit questionable when it comes to turnovers and creating turnovers. So I think that he's going to have a pretty good game plan to throw some different looks over at Sam Howell and be able to actually make sure that they cannot be able to move the ball consistently and get Sam Howell into a rhythm. I think that's when Sam Howell gets more dangerous, when he gets into a rhythm. And so I think that this is an opportunity where that Giants defense will be able to create turnovers. Again, Sam Howell has not had a game with back-to-back no turnovers in this season. So I think that this is a good spot for this defense to flex their muscles at home. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I think the defense is going to throw so many looks at Sam Howell that the offense can do enough and win an ugly 13-10 type of game. So I'm all over the New York Giants here +2. I think that's a pretty good bet. And that actually goes into my DFS and fantasy breakdown in this one. I don't think that Sam Howell is the quarterback playing this game. I think it actually is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is actually very, very good against the spread. Again, against his team, he has pretty solid matchups. He's able to run the ball on them. He's able to go in and get a touchdown. And so I think that it's a very possible opportunity here. Bringing on my man Keith, producer Keith, coming on here to help me out. But man, did you hear my breakdown? Do you like the Giants here? Do you think that there could be some fantasy value in Daniel Jones in this spot against a team that he plays really, really well against?
Well, if is he definitely coming back? Because I am not sure about the reports about that.
He's coming
But
back. He's coming back. Either
we're just
way,
gonna
but
say
Tyrod
yes.
looked good. Tyrod looked good against the Bills. That's a really good Bills defense that Tyrod didn't look terrible against. I know that they struggled and they weren't able to get into the end zone, but they had some success there. And I don't need them to do much because I really think Sam Howell is going to regress in this game like he's done all season. And this is going to be another one of those bad Sam Howell games. I think this is a pretty good spot for Daniel Jones. And this may be $1 million player that nobody's looking to play.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a good play for sure. I also think another good play might be Jalen Hyatt. Because they started running him out there more. They shortened the rotation of the other wide receivers. And I think that it's a possibility that he's going to start having breakout games. Hopefully, if the offensive line could block enough for him to get down the field,
Yeah.
because that's been the big problem, really. But Daniel Jones is always a sneaky pick, I think, in these millie makers, because if you're gonna have that rushing potential, and honestly, with a broken offensive line, there's always a chance he's going to just take it and run it. So I think it's a smart play, to be perfectly honest.
And real quick, before Washington Commanders giving up the most receiving yardage to wide receivers this season in the NFL. This
Their
feels like
cornerbacks have been weak. They have been real weak this season.
So I think that this is a very good spot. You look at what they're doing. Quarterbacks, second most passing in the NFL. 2 quarterbacks. Denver Broncos team just terrible. All right, let's go on to another game here. And I was playing around with the Fantasy Sports Optimizer. Make sure you use that QR code at the bottom of the screen. Get your 7-day free trial for the Fantasy Sports Optimizer. And it spit out a quarterback that I did think that this quarterback was, oh, really? But then I looked at the line, and the line is telling me that this quarterback has a chance to cover this weekend. going over to the 4 p.m. slate, and it just sucks. My man Steezy is not here because the Seahawks aficionado himself, they are at home bringing in the Arizona Cardinals, and the optimizer spit out Joshua Dobbs. What? Joshua Dobbs spit out by the optimizer as a potential Millie Maker quarterback here. Oh man, I'm just so excited about this because I love to go contrarian. I love to go contrarian when anybody else is. I started talking Seahawks and we might. Oh man,
It's
I
like
started talking
it's like
Seahawks
you
and we might be able to get him on here. He heard me
it's like
talking about the Seahawks and he said, "I'm ready." He's getting ready. Oh, he's about to come out the tunnel like Jordan did in the flu game. But going over to my point here, they're laying 7.5 here. The line was 8. My boy Steezy A Smith joining the show, talking Seahawks, and the optimizer spitting out Joshua Dobbs. I love the play, by the way. I'm going to just throw it out there. When you look at what the Seattle Seahawks are doing against the pass here, they are struggling. They are one of the worst pass defenses, even though they have an amazing rookie corner in Witherspoon there playing for them. It
Steezy, what do you think about this week 7 game against the Seahawks? Because we lost
Man,
Terrell.
okay, so I just wanted to say I heard what Ray was saying about that Seahawks pass defense. Statistically, it doesn't look
how some ways
good.
found ways to be competitive, even with
Oh, he was back on for a little
Sorry.
bit and then he left.
Yeah, we lost him.
Okay. Now going back to what I was saying though, so statistically it doesn't look good, but once you sprinkle in a little bit of context, you start to see why. You start to understand why. And so last week was the first game all season long in which that Seahawks secondary was fully healthy. You had Jamal Adams, you had Julian Love, you had Quandre Diggs, you had Devin Witherspoon, and you had Tariq Woolen. And we saw what happened in the second half. They held Joe Burrow to was 3 points, 3 points and under 100 total yards. And so again, statistically, it doesn't look good, but because this team is healthy, because this team is starting to get into a rhythm, I think this team has the potential to be a top 10 defense come the end of the season. And so I don't know if Josh Dobbs and Michael Wilson or any of these Cardinals are the best of plays, even if the statistics might suggest otherwise.
oh man, Steezy came and knocked me right out the string, just pushed me right on out, and they said, "All right, now we done got too many of y'all up here. We got to push somebody back on down," and so they knocked me right on out here. And if you want to win $1 million, you got to get creative. And
Yeah.
I think that even though it may be not highly likely that the Arizona Cardinals can go out here, be competitive enough to put Joshua Dobbs in a situation to be fantasy relevant, if he's able to get going on the ground, maybe he adds a touchdown on the ground and a couple through the air, this could actually be a nice fantasy day. If you're streaming quarterbacks, I don't think that Joshua Dobbs is the worst quarterback you could start this week. Actually, I know for a fact he's not the worst quarterback you could start this week. Matt Jones is the worst quarterback you could start this week. And we're going to go there to that game next because the Buffalo Bills are laying 8.5 on the road versus the New England Patriots, who somehow, some way, found a way to destroy the Close Your Eyes special last week. I need everybody to just come and imagine, and let's just go back in time. Now, imagine me sitting here. I've been hyping up how the Close Your Eyes special is undefeated against the spread over the course of the season. They were 5-0 going into last week. At the end of the 1 o'clock games, the Close Your Eyes special was 6-0. I'm riding on a high. I think everything is good. I'm watching the game, and the Patriots look terrible. And not only do they look terrible, Jimmy Garoppolo goes down. So now it's Brian Hoyer, and I say, "Oh no way, bro! Bill Belichick loses a game to Brian Hoyer. I mean, he's gonna take him all the way out the game. He knows everything about. He knows more about Brian Hoyer than Brian Hoyer knows about himself." And so we get to the last drive. New England gets a stop. They get the ball back, and Mac Jones makes the best pass of his career to date. Best pass of his career to date. Almost put them in field goal range, but Devontae Parker. Good morning to everybody except Devontae Parker. Because he drops a give me that would have put them in field goal range. And the next play, the Patriots take a safety to blow the cover We don't get the outright win. We don't get the cover. This is the worst beat that I've had in a very, very long time in betting in the NFL. Probably one of the worst beats that I sat here, and the only thing that could kept us from cashing +3 with the Patriots was a safety, and they took a safety. Now the Patriots are back home in Foxborough, and I'm telling you right now, they have no chance against this Buffalo Bills team. There's not. I give them absolute zero chance against this Buffalo Bills team. I can't even think of a narrative where you could even attempt to play anybody on this Patriots team. Steezy, am I going crazy? Is there a way? Is anybody on this Patriots team relevant this week?
Man, nah, you're not going crazy. Make that a party too, real. I just feel like with what they've been able to do, I heard this, I forgot where, but there's a new F word in town in New England, and it's not the F bomb, but it's futility. And we're starting to see, Bill Belichick and the Patriots at its nadir, right, at their very lowest point. I don't know how it gets worse, but against a team like the Buffalo Bills coming off kind of a letdown performance against the New York Giants, things could get worse. Just because I'm sure the Buffalo Bills are hungry to kind of get that stench off. I know they came away with the victory, but 14-9 against the New York Football Giants, and I know they've had a lot of injuries, but they've at times looked like the worst team of football this year. And so in New England, I thought Bill O'Brien was going to help things just because last year they had a defensive coordinator calling plays. And now that they actually bring in a real offensive coordinator, they still can't seem to score points or call plays efficiently and effectively. So I don't know what's going on, but real, I mean, you kind of pretty much hit the nail on the head. There's not really anything else to add at this point. They're better off probably starting like a Malik Cunningham. Because Bailey Zappi, I don't know, you're not going to get nothing new out of him. Mac Jones.
They're not even good starting Malik Cunningham because they don't even know how to run an offense for Malik Cunningham. They have no idea how to run an offense for him. So it's like Malik Cunningham's not even getting the look he deserves in New England because they're not running an offense for him. And you can't, and the offense you run really suits Mac Jones, but Mac Jones sucks. And so, I mean, man, I am so hard pressed to see how. Is New England the worst team in the league? I understand that Charlotte doesn't have a win yet, but at the very least, Charlotte put up 2 touchdowns to begin that game with the with the Miami Dolphins, and then proceeded to not cover the spread ever again after that moment.
At least they have life.
Yes, and at least there's something that you can be proud of. At least they made a change, and after the bye, they're going to be giving the reins of calling plays over to the offense coordinator. There's nothing that this Patriots team can do to be good. I just think that potentially here, this could be our stack. Is this not our stack? Do we not do a Josh Allen, a Stephon Diggs, and Patriots been kind of bad running the ball. Maybe you go James Cook and you do a running back, receiver, and quarterback stack for this one. This should be one of our stacks for the week.
Yeah, I think I will put a James Cook in there just because if this is expected to be a blowout, I know the game against the Giants was supposed to be a blowout, but I mean, the Patriots are achieving a different level of futility at this point. And so I think that if they're supposed to do if they do what they're supposed to do, this game should be a blowout. And come the fourth quarter, James Cook should have a lot of opportunities, a lot of carries to put up extra fantasy points. And so, yeah, I totally agree. Stephon Diggs. Now, New England's secondary is decent. I know there's some injuries that they're dealing with, but ever since they brought on J.C. Jackson, they've played slightly more effective. And so maybe he has a somewhat down game, but I mean, he's still one of the very best receivers in football. And if you were to eclipse 100, I wouldn't be surprised in the least. But Rel, I'm with you. This would be a great stack for week 7.
Did y'all see the video of A.J. Brown talking about he went into a corner and cried when the Patriots passed on him in the draft and they drafted N'Keal Harry? Think about that for a second. The Patriots passed on A.J. Brown to draft N'Keal Harry.
And DK.
And passed on DK too. I mean, at this point, if I'm the Patriots, I go to Bill Belichick and I say, Bill, thank you for everything you've done for us, but we need you to stay on the field. We are gonna handle it. We're gonna handle the front office piece. We need you to stay on the field, Bill.
Well, it should have been like that.
You passed up on N'Keal Harry. You took N'Keal Harry and passed up on DK and AJ Brown. Either one of these guys make Mac Jones look competent right now. All right. Let's talk about the game that everybody has eyes on this weekend, and that is the Sunday night football game. Miami
Mm,
Dolphins are traveling to the city, Philadelphia, play the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles laying 2, 52 is the total. You never see a total this high on Sunday night football, by the way, just so you know. By the way, everybody is betting the under and the total is climbing. I know we take Sunday night football unders, but literally everybody and their mom is betting the under and this total is climbing. This is what profiles to be. There's one other game that we'll talk about after this, but this is what profiles to be most high scoring game on the slate. I feel like here that we could be looking at a potential Super Bowl preview in this game.
mhm.
And with Super Bowl previews, sometimes they go to the moon. Remember when we saw last year that Dolphins and Bengals game where it just looked like it was score after score? I think too that was the game Tua got knocked out, and then the Bengals went and put up receivers had like 100 yards, but like every receiver that you could think of had about 100 yards. Everybody was scoring. Like you think of years ago, Mexico City, Jared Goff versus Patrick Mahomes, 100 million points, looked like a college game. Does this look like a college game, Steezy? Keith, does this look like a college game?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think these types of games that are all hyped up to be high scoring matches end up turning into defensive games. Watch it, wait for it. It's going to be an under. It's 51 and 50 and a half, I think is the
52.
the
52 is the total.
52?
It's the highest
wow,
total on
just
the
wanna-
board.
Yeah, it's going to be an under, and I wouldn't be surprised if this Eagles defense can slow down the Miami offense. Perfectly honest.
Oh, it's interesting to hear you say that take because I love setting people up for this. Eagles secondary is very questionable to start the year.
It is.
And add in the fact that they haven't played the toughest competition and they're currently giving up the 5th most passing yards in the league. And so and I've heard that people say, Eagles fans and Beyond the Wanderers say, "Oh, we didn't have Darius Slay last week." Well, where was Darius Slay the earlier games of the season? Like, what happened there that y'all were giving up all these passing yards? I don't think he was helping you too much against Zach Wilson because you've been giving up passing yards. So I find it interesting, and it just makes me scream that I have to take Tua in DFS this week because look at them. The Eagles secondary giving up the 5th most receiving yards. Miami's giving up the 6th. Neither one of these teams have played good teams. I think Miami played the Bills. Okay, I'll give them the Bills. But you look at, and maybe, no, the Chargers suck. I'm not giving them the Chargers. Chargers suck. Okay, so I give you the Bills. And then we look at Philadelphia. And wait, who have they played? That was really good. That was a really, really good win. And they're still giving up all these passing yards. I mean, I don't know. I think that there is so much opportunity here for the Sunday night football millie maker because these teams can't stop the pass, and they're 2 most high prolific offenses. Steezy, tell me I'm not crazy here. Does this seem like this is going to be one of those just parlay a whole bunch of touchdowns and a whole bunch of receiving props because you're going to get a show?
Yeah, attract me essentially. And I'm kind of on board with the both of y'all. I'm kind of like split in the middle because going back to what Keith was saying, I feel like with a lot of matchups this year, I found myself saying, "Oh yeah, this is the highest scoring game or highest scoring game of the slate, or this is expected to be a shootout. This is going to be over a total of 50." But then every single time, I feel like I've been wrong. And I know that they say that the 3rd time's a charm, but I've been wrong more than 3, 4, or 5 times this season already. And so I'm hoping that the 6th or the 7th time, maybe the 8th time, is a charm because, bro, everything you're saying theoretically and on paper, it all makes sense. Like, there's really nothing to dispute what you're saying because you're bringing stats and facts to the table. But at the same time, again, I've been wrong, and then Keith is right. And so I'm going to just stick to the middle. I think I'm going to say that this is going to be a mini track meet, a mini shootout. Maybe it doesn't eclipse 50, if that's even a thing. I guess I'm just playing this safe. But, Ray, I thought you also made some great points. Miami has yet to play an elite team. And I know Philadelphia, you talked about their lack of competition this season, but we know what they're capable of. We know that they could turn it up. We know that they're coming off a loss to the New York Jets. We know that they're hungry to bounce back. they are playing this game. What is it, at home? And so they definitely have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I'm really looking forward to this game. That's all I could really say. Yeah, I mean, with Miami, look, Jalen Ramsey is practicing this week. Obviously, he's not going to play, but if he's ready to play in a week or two, maybe this defense looks better. But that's definitely something that they have to work on. I don't have too much else to say. It's just, I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see.
Well,
We'll wait and see, right, Keith?
yeah. Well, I will say this: the Eagles' defense put on an impressive display against the vaunted New York Jets offense, which is just like really high octane, probably one of the best offenses in the league. So, I mean, when you put up a good showing like that, I mean, you really got to think twice.
Oh man,
Terrell, are you back?
I think so.
Oh yeah, you're here.
Oh, all right.
You're all set.
I mean, I'm not going to question it. There's no reason that I should be back, but I am not going to question it. Everything is working, so we're perfectly fine here. I mean, it's clear you're starting everybody here in this game in fantasy.
yeah, you're still starting.
Yeah, you're starting everybody. But the question mark that I do have to pose, because somebody may be in a situation that I'm in, and do we start Jeff Wilson in this game? Jeff Wilson is coming back off of IR. He's with Achane out. He's slated to fall into that RB2 for this team. Raheem Mostert had another big game last week. Is this a spot where you just sit here and say that the running back for the Miami Dolphins is going to consistently have value, even if it is the number 2 running back? Can we play him as a flex option in this slate?
I think if you're in the deepest of leagues, you take a chance on it. I think one of the main reasons why Miami has been successful in deploying 2 fantasy relevant running backs this season is because they've been playing bad opponents. They've been blowing out opponents. They've been scoring a bunch of points. And while Philadelphia's defense statistically hasn't been the best, I just don't see them giving up a bunch of, I guess, runway for these running backs. Their run defense is tops in the league, one of the best in the league when it comes to opposing yards per carry and total opponent rushing yards per game. And so if Jeff Wilson is going to make contributions in this game, it's going to have to be as a pass catcher. I think out of the backfield, he's the better pass catcher between him and Raheem Mostert. And so let's say Miami is playing catch up. Let's say Miami is playing more hurry up. Let's say Miami is playing more up tempo. I think you'll see more Jeff Wilson in those pass catching situations. But at the same time, Raheem Mostert, I mean, man, he could just also pop off. Again, so just to kind of answer the question, I'm going to say in the deepest of leagues, if you're desperate at running back and you kind of need a dart throw, or let's say you're projected to lose by a landslide and you kind of need some upside and a spark, then you start him. But there's probably going to be a little bit of rust involved just because it's been so long since he's played. But if he's going to make a significant contribution, I think it's going to be in the passing game.
All right, Keith.
Yeah, I would say to be if I'm thinking about it, their run defense is really great. And what I would say is they held Breece Hall to only 39 yards on 12 rushes last week. And Breece Hall is way better than Mostert. I could see Mostert having a line of 12 rushes for 90 yards and one rush is 80 yards. You know what I mean? Like,
he's like that.
Yeah.
He's like that.
Yeah, no, I feel it.
Yeah, so I could definitely see that type of game for him. And Jeff Wilson, I'm not sold on it, especially coming off of injury. You know, he might get like 5. What do you think? Like his low workload is probably like 5 rushes, maybe 5 to 10 rushes at the max.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And
if that's enough
potentially maybe a goal line touch or 2, maybe. But I think that if you're just hoping for the best, and that's ultimately what I'm doing. I'm playing Wilson, and I'm just hoping for the best that, hey man, maybe something happens and he's able to get one at the goal line. But I agree with you, Steezy. I think that this is going to be a closer game, probably in a negative game script at some point for the Miami Dolphins. So not going to be too many chances where they have to run the ball up and down other teams. All right, let's go to the next high scoring game on the slate. The Dolphins and the Eagles total came up. This total came down. It opened up at 52, and now it's at 48.5 here for the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is in Arrowhead. 5.5 is the line for the Chiefs here. I mean, it's clear and obvious. You know who you're starting. Justin Herbert's been absolutely fantastic. Even though I question him as an NFL quarterback, he's been very, very good in terms of fantasy production here and had another 20-point game on Monday Night Football. You have Patrick Mahomes, you know you're starting him. You know you're starting Travis Kelsey. Let's look at this Chiefs secondary. Is there a player, not secondary, this Chiefs wide receiver room? Is there a player that you are willing to just go ahead and say, I am starting this player in fantasy for the Kansas City Chiefs that is not named Travis Kelsey, that is a receiving option?
Yeah, that's easy. I'm starting Rasheed Rice. There was a report
Really?
earlier today. Yeah, there was a report earlier today, and I know they've kind of been sprinkling this in, throughout the off season and even at some point during the season, but they said that his role is only going to continue to grow. And in the last couple of weeks, he's had 4 receptions in both games and like 50, 60 plus yards. And so
Mhm.
we're starting to see his role expand. Patrick Mahomes does like him in the red zone. These other receiving options haven't really done a lot to separate themselves. I mean, yeah, the upside is always going to be there with the Kadarius Toney, but it seems like they're reluctant to move him or to have him down the field. Like they don't ever send him down the field. And
Mhm.
it's like everything he catches is at the line of scrimmage or within a couple of yards of the end zone. And so until we start to see more uses down the field for Kadarius Toney, then I think Rasheed Rice is the guy. If we're not talking, or if we're talking someone else not named Travis Kelsey, just because again Patrick Mahomes looks for him in the red zone. His
Mhm.
role has only been growing in the last couple of weeks, and these other wide receivers have kind of failed to separate themselves.
So talked with Simon and Stu yesterday, and Keith was there, and they are both in on Rasheed Weiss. I am of the thought process of this is what the Kansas City Chiefs do, and they buy us into a receiver. They buy us into this receiver, and this person is gonna be the guy. He is replacing Tyreek Hill. We're gonna start giving him the touches, and then the receiver comes out 1 for 3, maybe 3 targets, does nothing.
It's rope a dope. That's what I think it is. It's rope a dope. This wide receiver core, like anytime you think a wide receiver is going to start getting the ball
While
for
the
the Kansas
person
City
nobody was
Chiefs,
talking about
it's
goes
clearly
and
obvious that it's a Trojan horse. It's going to Kelsey. It's going to Pacheco. I'd believe Mahomes to throw a pass and catch it on his own before any of these wide receivers
Oh,
goes on to
what?
become a a big play in any of these DFS matchups. So no, I wouldn't buy into it. I like Rasheed Rice. I like what I've seen, but I also see him like running pretty simple routes from what I've saw. He's just been running some basic stuff like slants and nothing too complicated. I'm not sure if he's there yet, and I do like him. I think he's going to be good, but I don't think he's there.
I just can't I can't trust any receiver. Like it's literally a dart throw. Like it's just a dart throw. Kadarius Toney scored last week. I don't know how many people had that on their bingo card, but Kadarius Toney scored last week. So
He did.
I'm gonna just say Sky Moore. Everybody's talking about Sky Moore, and Justin Watson probably not playing this game with that hand injury. I think that I'm gonna just say Sky Moore because everybody's literally talking about Rasheed Rice. They really are. Everybody, and I've seen it, and I've heard it, and I understand it. This is what Chiefs do. Play Sky Moore. Is that simple? Play Sky Moore. That's my bold
All
call.
right, since you're going with Sky Moore and it's a dart throw, I'll go with Scantling, and we'll just call it. We'll all pick different wide
There
receivers.
you
So we
go. I
cover our
mean,
bases.
somebody has to hit. I think you personally have no shot at all. They just don't even look his way. Like, I think you have no shot at all. But somebody's gonna be right here, and that's what you have to do with the Chiefs. And that's what makes the DFS so fun, and best ball so fun is because you don't have like if you're rolling with a Chiefs stat and you have these receivers with Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes, you feel pretty good. Like especially in best ball, if you have multiple receivers to go from, you're just hoping one of them breaks through any given week. And this Chargers defense very very soft against wide receivers, giving up the 5th most receiving yardage in the league. So very very good matchup here. Going to the Chargers side of the ball, Keith, I want to throw this to you. Joshua Palmer, a little banged up. Quentin Johnston still doesn't seem to be getting to work. However, Palmer had a very, very good day against the Dallas Cowboys. Is there a path right now for Quentin Johnston to be fantasy relevant?
I think there's an opportunity, but do I really think that he's going to show up? No. I'm going to think Herbert's going to go to his safety blanket, Keenan Allen, and chuck it up all day. It's going to be more focused on Eckler. I doubt Quinton Johnson is ready, as you guys were talking about it in the last show. He doesn't seem like he's ready. He doesn't seem like he's ready for the moment. He still needs to, be polished a little bit more in his route running. And right now, I think he's just seems to be like he just stretches the field. He's even somewhat of a decoy at this point, and I think it's just going to go straight to Keenan Allen.
Steezy, I have said that Johnston really isn't a bad player. He's just a rookie wide receiver, and rookie wide receivers take time. And unfortunately, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson have sped up that time clock to now, as opposed to a year from now that most rookie wide receivers get. So, with that, do you think that there's a path for Quentin Johnston with not Mike Wallace? Whoa, that's a throwback there.
Mike Wallace.
That's a throwback there. Mike Williams.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
A very long time. Shout out to Mike Wallace, man. But is there a path with Mike Williams out that Quentin Johnston can be fantasy relevant throughout the course of the regular season?
Man, that's a tough ask. I think right now he's had a couple of weeks. He's had a couple of opportunities to kind of showcase what he has, in that role of being able to fill in for Mike Williams, and we just haven't seen it. Going back to what you guys are saying, not only that, but he's just raw. Like, even coming out of college, he was known as a raw prospect. Now, I don't think anybody expected him to kind of come in and contribute right away in year one, even in an explosive offense, even with the quarterback like a Justin Herbert who could sling it all over the yard. And so, as far as the rest of this regular season, nah, because if he was going to do it, we probably would have seen it by now. Like I said, he's had a couple of weeks. He's had a couple opportunities since Mike Williams did go down. And Justin Herbert, I mean, Keenan Allen is number one, obviously, in the pecking order. Josh Palmer has had a solid floor. Austin Eckler is back. Like, those are your top three receiving options. And then once you're in the red zone, he likes to Donald Parham. Gerald Everett had a touchdown last week or the other day. And so if we're talking dynasty, then that's a different conversation. Obviously, Johnson has a lot of potential. He's somebody that you want to keep on your bench. Maybe if you want to dangle him for, I don't know, you can get a future first-round pick for him. But he's a lot better in dynasty and down the line. This regular season, I don't see too much. I don't expect too much. Just because, like you guys said, he's not as polished. He can still use some seasoning. He's always been a raw prospect, and that's what we're seeing now.
All right, so something I just find interesting. Something I just find interesting is that I was looking through the depth chart of the Chargers, but lined up behind Joshua Palmer is Simi Fehoko, who might be deep play. Because Quentin Johnston's not even. I don't think that's going to be the option, to be perfectly honest. So you're probably better off, and I think Darius Davis is more of a replacement for Keenan Allen. So if you're going to do a long shot, if you want to try to win the Millie Maker, maybe that's your shot.
I think Johnston
0% ownership.
I think Johnston has one path to make you money, and this is what you do. Tapping back into my gambling sports betting hat. You take Johnston. You take his under receptions. I think they're typically at 2.5. I just played this the other day. I got to look and see what I got his under receptions at. I think it's typically at 2.5. It might be at 1.5. So take the under on his receptions, take the over on his receiving yards, and add a touchdown up there. Because that's the only way he's going to be able to score. He's going to get one deep ball because if you looked at that game Monday night, he had the chance and Herbert missed him. He gets one deep ball for a touchdown, and that's it. That's all. They just give him go routes. They don't even try to extend his route tree, and it's maybe because he just needs to work on it a little bit more. Like possibly that's what it is. So, yeah, man, I wouldn't. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant. I think he's probably going to have a week where he's going to get to the end zone before sooner or not. Like he's just too big of a body pause, and I think that he has the opportunity where he's going to be able to really be able to be like that Donald Parham in the red zone for them.
All right,
you still there, bro?
I think he's going to get into the end zone eventually, and he'll probably.
No, you're here.
No, you good now. You good now.
Okay, all right. But yes, take Quentin Johnston. I think and get into the end zone. Play. I think you're going to get that. Get you 6 points because a before.
I think we lost Terrell. I'm gonna have to get him back. Do you have any final thoughts on this, Steezy?
Yeah, one thing I do want to add about a Quentin Johnson is that I do still think his potential is sky high because Keenan Allen is getting a little older. Austin Eckler, we don't know what the future holds as far as whether or not he's going to stay in LA. I could see Quentin Johnson being fantasy relevant as soon as next season. I understand that's not going to help us for fantasy purposes this season. But again, if you play Dynasty, don't give up on Quentin Johnson. I think the potential is still there. The potential is massive. And he's going to be behind, or he's going to be playing or catching passes from Justin Herbert for a very, very long time. Hold on to Quentin Johnson. I think the potential is limitless.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to another game. I think could be a somewhat interesting game. Maybe the San Francisco 49ers versus the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings have to come out and really fight to get back into this season. Do you think there's any hope for the Vikings to knock off the 49ers? The 49ers coming off a bad loss to the Browns.
Well, of course, they're always going to have a chance. But would I put money on them to win the game? Probably not. And am I starting any of their guys in fantasy? I don't know. I mean, I just found myself benching or Kirk Cousins for a Brock Purdy in one of my 12 teams. And so for fantasy purposes, I don't even know if I want to start anybody, maybe besides a Jordan Addison. But even then, I'm a little iffy, and I'm only really counting on him to kind of put up points. Let's say Minnesota's down in the fourth quarter, down by like, a couple touchdowns, and they're trying to catch up. Maybe he puts some production in that manner. But as far as fantasy and as far as real life, no and no.
You're telling me Alexander Madison isn't going to be change the score for you?
Nah, maybe a little bit, yeah, but nah.
All right.
So do you have takes on this 49ers Vikings game?
Well, you have Kyle Shanahan, and if you checked out my article at sportstopia.io, you'll see that I'm on the Minnesota Vikings +7 this week because Kyle Shanahan. This is the same spot that I had Kyle Shanahan last week, and we got an outright win. Kyle Shanahan is not good when he's laying a large number on the road. When Kyle Shanahan is laying over a touchdown on the road, he is 1-6 against the spread. Now, granted, prior to last week, he did win all of those games. He just didn't cover the spread. Last week was the only time that he lost the game outright. But he is not good in this spot. It's a terrible spot for him. This team is also playing a back-to-back road game, which is a really tough spot in the NFL. And you have this Minnesota Vikings team that is looking for any type of motivation. This defense actually started to look a little bit better. And I think now Brian Flores is getting the defense to play a little bit closer to where he wants them to be at. Weather was a big factor for how the Browns were able to stay into that game. So that is concerning. But look at what Minnesota's done this season. They literally only play one-score games. There's no other button for them. Even in a Carolina game where it seemed like at first they struggled and then they became dominant in that game, they still only won that game by 8. Like they played nothing in one possession games. And so if you're telling me that you have a team that plays in nothing but one possession games and they're getting 7 points at home, yeah, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings. Do I think they win outright? Probably not, but I think they cover the spread.
I think that's I'd actually bet that too. I think it's a little closer than people realize just because it does help that they're at home. It does help that they've had a longer layoff because it is, Monday Night Football. And I know there's a bad rep when it comes to Kirk Cousins and prime time, but I don't think he's as bad when it comes to Monday Night Football as the numbers might suggest. So I think that's a good bet there, real.
Yeah, I had to take primetime Kirk Cousins against the Philadelphia Eagles earlier this season, and we got a backdoor cover. Hoping for the same.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that Christian McCaffrey plays?
I don't think you need to, honestly. And I think that's another thing that goes into the handicap of why I would take the Minnesota Vikings, because I don't think you need to. I think you feel pretty confident in your team that, weather was a big factor in that game and what really kept your offense from rolling. And you feel like you have a much softer matchup against this Vikings defense than that Browns defense was. I think that you feel confident if Elijah Mitchell was able to play that he could do pretty well in this game. And they like what they have in Jordan Mason. So I think that Chris McCaffrey doesn't play. And I think Elijah Mitchell, I really, really hope he's your starter because I have a league where I need some running back help. And I have Elijah Mitchell sitting on the bench.
Here's what I'll say. I think that if he had to play, he would play. But going back to what Rel was saying, this isn't necessarily a game in which he has to play, and it's not necessarily a must-win either, and it's not like you need him. I mean, if I'm San Fran, I'm resting up C-Mac, I'm resting up Trent Williams, and I'm resting up Debo. Like, these guys, not Trent Williams, but Debo and C-Mac in particular are injury-prone. And so in a game in which you don't particularly need them, I'm resting them if I can.
Yeah, I think you're right. If this was a playoff game, he'd be playing. They said it was just a pain management issue, so why not get him healthy and have him ready for the rest of the season? It makes sense to sit him and let Elijah Mitchell. I mean, this guy's biting at the bit to start, I think, so why the heck not give him the shot and let him play one game? We have a viewer question. We have Alex Flores. What side wins, Bijan and Flowers or Jacobs and Hawkinson PPR? Steezy, what do you think?
Let me just go ahead and give out the matchups for the people. So we have Bijan Robinson, who's going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. Flowers is going. Well, is this just 1 week or is this rest of the season?
Doesn't
Great
say.
question.
You can imagine.
Great question. Yeah, if it's just this week, Bijan's going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have Zay Flowers going up against the Detroit Lions, and Josh Jacobs going up against the Chicago Bears, and TJ Hawkinson going up against the 49ers. Talked about.
Steezy,
That's tough.
What are your thoughts? No.
My bad. I was like, wait, did Rel go out? Let's just assume that they're talking about this week. And man, this is tough because Zay Flowers has a nice matchup. Bijan Robinson doesn't. Josh Jacobs has a nice matchup, and Hawkinson, it's kind of middle of the road, but the volume is always going to be there. And so I think I'm probably going to have to lean towards the Josh Jacobs and TJ Hawkinson side. Like we talked about earlier, Rail, you think that Minnesota could potentially be in the cards for a backdoor cover against the Niners? If that's going to happen, TJ Hawkinson is going to be a pivotal figure of that happening. And then with the Josh Jacobs, like we talked about, if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't play, they're going to lean on Josh Jacobs even more so than they already have all year long. And that Bears defense is nothing, or hasn't been doing anything all year long either. And so it's difficult, and there's nice matchups on both sides, but give me the Josh Jacobs and TJ Hawkinson side.
Well, just to caveat this, Alex just came in the chat and said, sorry, rest of season. So,
that
change your answer?
Oh, okay. Well, okay, let me see if I need to adjust my answer. No, I don't. Keep it that way.
Terrell, what do you think?
I think there's a world of possibility where Josh Jacobs just never gets going this season because that offensive line is so bad. Like I think that's really what's tearing me off of the Hawkinson side. I think Hawkinson is probably neck and neck with Bijan for the top player out of the four that you name. But Jacobs, I just don't know if I don't know if they're ever going to figure it out. This offensive line is really bad. This team isn't that good. I don't think that they're ever going to turn a corner. I think if anything, they're playing at the highest that they're playing right now because they're currently second in the AFC East in 3-3, and they've looked terrible. I think I'm going with the Bijan Robinson and Zay Flowers side because at the least with Flowers, even he's dominating targets for this team. I mean, it's not even close. Maybe Mark Andrews is close, but you look at he's got 3 games of double-digit targets this season, 10, 10, 11. He had 8 targets last week overseas against the Tennessee Titans. He continues to get the workload. It's just really the hands, and will he be able to catch the ball when it gets to him? I think that was a 1 week jitters against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, give me Flowers and Robinson.
Wait, real quick, though, Sorry, Keith. Real quick, though, Rail, I do want to ask you about Bijan Robinson and his lack of usage because he's yet to eclipse 20 rushing attempts in a game this year. And I have a lot of shares of Bijan. So I love his talent. I love what he brings to the table. But are you at all concerned by Atlanta's, I guess, lack of really using them to the fullest extent?
No, I'm not. I'm not really concerned at all, to be honest. I think that because he's been so good with the touches he does get. And it seems like it's not a Tyler Algier problem. Like he just comes in as a change of pace, but they're not looking to give Algier a whole bunch of touches. I think that it's just more of this team has just been in pretty bad game script, and they can't afford to run the ball as much as Arthur Smith would like to because they don't really have the rest of the team to make up like he did that Titans team where he could run behind Derrick Henry 20 times a game. So I think it's only up from here. But if at the usage that he's at right now, he's still really, really good. So I take my chances.
Yeah, I was going to say, I honestly, Hawkinson's been sort of disappointing this year. You would think with Justin Jefferson out that he would have gotten a lot more fantasy points this year, and he really hasn't done a whole lot. And honestly, I'm concerned rest of season when Justin Jefferson comes back, he's going to be the target share is going to go away. So are you really going to buy in on him? He hasn't shown me anything. I know he's a great talent, but I'm not believing in him right now. And I don't think that the Vikings are the offensive firepower that they were last season. I know they score a lot, but he just hasn't done a whole lot.
Yeah.
I think in the last couple of weeks, though, maybe he's kind of had a hard time adjusting to being like the number one option, like the focal point of the offense. I think the more that Jordan Addison continues to kind of come along into what he eventually will become, maybe the less or the decreased attention or the increased attention isn't so much a problem, if that makes sense. But I mean, Keith, you are right, though. Statistically, in the last 2 weeks, his performance has been, let's just say, below average, at least for his standards. And so I understand the concerns there.
All right. One more question before we have to head out. We have Matt. What do you think about Zeke Elliott going forward?
Oh, man.
It's a good handcuff. Very good handcuff. I think Zeke.
I think for me, with that Patriots offense, we were talking about just how futile, just how bad this offense has been. And so even him in a handcuff role, let's say Ramondre gets injured, knock on wood, I just don't know if that really do wonders just because this team has a hard time moving the football down the field. Yeah, he's been used a little bit more out of the backfield as far as catching passes, but I'm not nearly as high on him as Rel is. He's just a bench guy, if even that. A waiver wire guy, let's say that.
Yeah, you don't have many opportunities that you're going to have this Patriots team positive game script to be running all up and down the field. But hopefully they do some checkdowns. All right, that has been it. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Appreciate everybody for still rocking with us, joining with us. Hoping it was a good time. And I promise you, it will be better next time. But other than that, I really don't have anything else to say. Nothing else to do. Make sure you get that fantasy sports optimized. I don't really have any cool way of ending this, but I do want to hear that really, really cool theme music one more time. Let's do it.